Hello, and welcome to Thrive Online. My name is Declan, and today I'm joined by Jennifer Cox, Director of Women in Cybersecurity for UK and Ireland, and Paul Delahunty, Chief Information Security Officer at Stryve. Thank you both for joining me today.
It's good to be here.
Yep.
As a quick heads up before we start, we are .ie, Ireland's national domain name registry, and we are strong believers in the good that the internet can bring to local communities and small businesses and people. So as one does, we launched a podcast, Thrive Online. Each episode is going to be an informal discussion with experts to talk about how people and businesses can stay safe online while using the internet to its full potential. If you want to know more information on who we are, you can go to www.weare.ie. But let's now get into it. So, I guess question then generally for the table, do small businesses realistically need to be worried about cybercrime or cybersecurity? Like if I'm running a small cafe, is this really something that I need to be concerned about?
Yes.
That's it. That's the short answer. Absolutely.
No, I think it's anyone with any kind of online presence, or which is I'm struggling to think of a business these days who doesn't have some kind of online presence. Once you do, you need to be some way concerned about cybersecurity, keeping your data safe, keeping your assets safe, and it doesn't have to be, this matrixy type of complex thing. It's doing the basic small steps right, like knowing what your assets are, making sure have your antivirus on, do you use proper passphrases, have you multi-factor authentication on, all these things. And we can talk about the show, but they're all basic things that you should have in your own personal life, never mind if you have a business.
And even if you're the kind of small business owner, like say cafe size or something like that, who's thinking, oh, it's just a pain, I don't want to have to do anything like that. Your customers are trusting you with their data. And often that's something that gets forgotten when you're tapping your phone or tapping your card, or you're just picking up a coffee or getting something on the fly. You're not considering the fact often, we do obviously because this is the field that we're in, but you're not considering the fact often that how much data you're handing over in that single second transaction. So as a responsible business owner, it's a reputational thing as well. Like maybe I don't want to do it, but I also don't want to be hitting headlines as having had data stolen, or have to contact my customers and say that there is data stolen because I look irresponsible and that's going to affect my business.
It's actually what happens. A lot of businesses, the worst part is the reputational damage afterwards, where you
By
lose
far.
the customers much more than with the data that you actually lose,
That's a good point, I think, is that I think that there's generally this, misconception that it's just very much a pain to do, or, taking those necessary steps is very much just a chore of do I really need to do this? But I mean, yeah, to your point, there's a lot of, for instance, personal trainers or gyms, they could have health information about people's, medical conditions. Do you think that there is this attitude that this is only for big businesses and this is only for big organizations that, small business owners have, and that they sort of, might neglect this a little bit?
I think that's used as an excuse. I think the attitude is that there's a tendency, certainly in small and even sometimes medium business, to not want to do it because they think it's difficult, but not actually taking the time to talk to somebody or do a little bit of research and find out that it's actually not that difficult to put the most basic measures in place. So the excuse often used is that it's only a big business problem. But the reality is that most big businesses are super well prepared for this kind of thing. They've got teams that are looking after all of that. I mean, there wouldn't be a title like yours, Paul, if there wasn't teams doing these kind of things. But the small businesses are much easier to target. Even as a consumer using your credit card, everybody knows what skimming is now. We know what to look out for. We still don't necessarily protect ourselves well enough for it. In the same vein, everybody has a responsibility. And yeah, I've seen it used as an excuse, but only when that individual or those individuals simply, it's out of ignorance. That sounds really aggressive. I don't mean that in the aggressive way, but it's out of an unwillingness. Imagine you're an artist of your own gallery and you love what you do and you're living and breathing it all day, every day, and now you have to deal with cybersecurity as well. You know, it's really not going to like get you out of the bed in the morning if it's not the kind of thing that you love to do. And I understand that, but it's a hell of a lot easier than people think.
But the other side of that too is that nobody ever thinks the same way about, say, doing your tax returns. Now, the thing that would make me fall asleep if somebody said, here, do a tax return, I'll just, yeah. But we all know we have to do it. It's a cost of doing business. Cybersecurity is the exact same thing. And I think for SMEs, a lot of it is the fear. I don't understand it. Oh, it's complex. Oh, it's no, you're just coming up with excuses. Stop, take the breath. If you don't understand it, you don't know how to talk to somebody. Listen to this podcast and repeat.
True.
We'll hopefully have a few answers for you. But all the help is out there. There are standards out there that are very easy to follow. It's all freely available. There's no cost to it. You can go into ChatGPT and ask them, right, what are the 10 basic steps I should do? And within 10 seconds, something as simple as that will have back to the 10 basic things you should try and do. And they are basic. You know, it's
biggest indicators are actually if you do look at the regulation. Like I have a tendency when there's regulation, there's tons of it. When I want to know it quickly, I'll just like ChatGPT give me the highlights. So I know what's there, and then I'll go and look into it in detail if I have to talk to it much. But when you look at the regulation, like you look at the new regulation for around AI data and how it's secured, like it's really about the first stages of it are about understanding what AI is, what the data is, where you might actually be using it. It's not super complex getting into the depth of how it's built and the structures of it and having to know like neuroscience or
explain the code to me.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. It's literally just going, do you know what AI is? And, you know, do you know where you're using it in the business? It doesn't even really get into the depth of protecting it. And protection is not massively different than any other data. You just need to understand that how you're using it is different. And it's the same when we looked at like DORA and such, when they came out and they start to affect the smaller businesses, and the smaller businesses are panicking. But all of the bodies that are distributing the training and information about all of these standards, and NIS2 and such as well, are making it relevant to the groups that they're talking to. And there's a lot of government bodies and such that are making it really adaptable. So you can actually go in and go, okay, this is my first time turning on a computer. Can you help me figure out how this works? I've had like a credit card machine. I do stuff on my phone, but I don't know, you know, anything about how to protect it from a computer perspective. You know, there's people at every level that will help people to do that. And there's all the, like most people I know that work in cybersecurity love it. So they're not just doing it for their job. Like they're helping people everywhere else. Look at us.
Yeah.
But they're helping people everywhere else in every way that they can, talking about it and simplifying it too, because it's important.
Well, you kind of touched on this a little bit already, because like I also cannot think of like a business that doesn't have some online presence. But, you know, to paraphrase The Simpsons, like is now the time to panic, I think, because there are a lot of like business owners that, you know, this is sort of a new realm or something that they don't quite understand, and it might seem very scary. Would you ever suggest that a business should not have like an online presence simply because they're afraid of cybersecurity or cybercrime? Or, you know,
No.
as you say, like this is a risk that realistically they can't take steps to address.
Well, if they want their business to be local and stay local and cash-based and all that kind of stuff, like there are a handful of people that like to do that. Maybe they're only, you know, making arts and craft type things. But if they want their business to grow in any way or want it to actually fund their life, no, they're going to need to go have some sort of internet presence. But even if they don't, they need to be able to get paid for the work that they do. And that involves often an internet presence, like with credit card transactions and such too. And you're assuming that the bank are looking after your best interest there, in the way that when we have websites and information that we store on the cloud, we're assuming that AWS and Google and Microsoft are looking after our data, when it's clearly stipulated that you have responsibility about how you're managing that data too. So assumption is the mother of all, which I won't say. But, you know, there's a lot of those things there. But everybody shouldn't be afraid of it. We're only afraid of the unknown. Yeah. And I think we're at a path now as such, especially with AI being spoken about, like it's this big terrifying thing that's coming. It's going to separate everybody. But we've definitely had a path where those who are embracing tech, the internet, cybersecurity, AI, all of those things in whatever level are the ones that are going to see their businesses soar. And those that aren't, this is probably as far as they're going to get. So it's really about making the decision about, are you happy with the size that your business is at now and how it's managing? And if you are, great. And if you're not and you want to see any more success beyond that, then you have to take these things on board.
But any of these things that we, like even the regulation and all that, it all should work with your business.
Yeah.
It's not a barrier to business. It's never that. It's something that actually should help your business and grow. And it's like, look, it's all about risk management. And we talk a lot about managing risk. And a huge part of any of the standards that we use is literally about just managing your risk. There's a risk this morning when I put one foot in front of the other and got up out of bed. Okay. But the benefits of getting up out of bed, facing the day, getting into the car and driving up to Dublin totally outweigh the risk of being in a horrible car crash or something like that, something terrible happening. Because I drove at the speed limit. I paid attention to what I was doing on the road. I had my seatbelt on. The car was roadworthy. So I'm mitigating my risk all the way along, meaning that the risk is now at an acceptable level. And that's all you're doing really with cybersecurity or being online. You know, I often use the example of somebody looking to steal a car. They'll go down the street, and unless they have a very specific car in mind, they're going to check the doors of each of the cars. And it's the one that's open with the keys still in the ignition. That's the one that's going to be stolen. Not the one that's locked, and maybe has a demobilizer on it or something like that. So all you're trying to do is you're just trying to do the basic things. You don't have to have the same level of security as the Pentagon.
Don't be the unlocked car.
Don't be the unlocked car. Exactly.
It's a good point, because I did hear anecdotally that a lot of cyber criminals don't actually look at, if a business is big or if it's small. Like on their screen, it's all just like ones and zeros. They're looking for the businesses that don't have those adequate security measures in place. And to your point, like there's risk of having that online presence, but it's all about wearing that seatbelt and not leaving the key in the ignition.
We've all heard of the term phishing, the PH phishing, okay? And it is like somebody literally going fishing with a rod. You're throwing the rod out. And whatever fish decides to eat the worm that's dangling on the end of that hook, that's the one that's going to get brought in and eaten. Okay, so it's random, unless it's something very specific. But it's most of the time it's random. And think about it, in Ireland, I think the figures are 99.6% of businesses are SMEs. I think it's something like that. It's the vast majority. So they're often too the ones that don't have, like you said earlier on, Jennifer, the big businesses have it covered. Yeah. Okay. They have teams. They know what they're doing at this stage, because regulatory wise, they probably have to anyway. So then, if you've got 99.6% of the population is your target, and most of them are SMEs and probably not as well protected, that's what you're going to go for.
Yeah. Low hanging fruit. Like, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Be the same for anyone in any industry. You're going to go for these stuff. If you're selling something, you're going to go to the ones who want it first.
Yeah.
So the same idea with that. I think for me, it's always been about simplification. I think at some point we'll stop calling it cybersecurity and we'll just refer to it as security. It's putting the cyber in front of it that makes people think, robots, AI is scary. And it's somehow intimidating. And most of those people are already like pottering away on their phone, using social media, using their banking online. Like, they're already heavily invested in using all of these tools anyway, and don't realize that the two are connected. Yeah. But and they're so connected. Like, even within all of those apps that you use, they all have security in place. You're putting your 2FA in, you're using your thumbprint, your face recognition, all of that. You're actually using security all day, every day. It's just about having it for your site too. And as a consumer as well, if I'm using a site that doesn't have 2FA, it definitely flags to me that, something's missing here. Why aren't you? Because it's so easy to put in. Even most pre-built websites where you use them as a template to build your site have all that stuff built into it. It means you've chosen not to put it in, which is not good. You want to have those things in place.
I'm glad you brought up that thing about the word cyber, because it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
The word cyber
it's almost like a classist thing.
It's a meaningless word. I think it's something like an ancient Egyptian or Greek bow person or something. Like, it's just meaningless. I read it somewhere, something like that. Yeah. It's no relation whatsoever. And like, even my title is Information Security Officer. And I always try and get that across to people. First thing to do is, right, we're going to take the word cyber, we're going to throw it out, and we're going to put the word information in there. It's information security, because that's what's really important, because that's what you're protecting. But basic things, like you said, people...
It's an elitism, though. When you put a brand like that on it, it's like, well, I know it and you don't. And it allows this kind of class separation between the techies and the non-techies.
Yeah, you don't understand it, so I'll mind this for you.
Which is grand if you're coding, and it's grand if you're building new tech, and it's grand if you're doing all these new and inspirational things. But cybersecurity is not new and inspirational. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you do it, Paul, but most of the conversations I've had with people throughout my career in cyber is basics. It's always basics. better passwords, changing passwords, making sure that they're not sticking them under their keyboards, making sure that everybody understands what a good password is, making sure that people don't leave their laptops logged in, that you're not giving them too many permissions more than they need, that the network is secure. Like, that's real basic stuff. And that's the thing that, like, if you look at the majority of breaches out there, if you trace them all the way back to root cause, usually IAM, so that's the identity access management, is there. So it means that somebody had too many permissions or a stupid password that could be guessed. Like, in a lot of cases, those hackers that are looking for low-hanging fruit have this big list of passwords that they know are commonly used, and they're just going to basically check them against every single login possible, and they'll get hits because people are still using password with a 0 for their password, So
my password of my dog's name and my birthday, you're saying, is not secure.
No. Did you know that longer passwords are more secure, actually, rather than
Really?
having mixed ones that are shorter? Sands actually came forward and said that was like, sounds like the god of cyber. At least, well, I know they might consider themselves that. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about it.
They're in the pantheon.
Yeah, but if you had a really long password that was like, my dog's name is Spot and my birthday is in June, and that was your password, that whole sentence all in one go, would be much more secure than actually having numbers and characters and letters all mixed in a like 12 character limit or something, because it's harder. The longer it is, the harder it is for someone to guess, and the longer it is as a sentence, the easier it is for you to remember
and type.
Which
is great, because you're writing it as a sentence, and its length and strength. Yeah, Kevin Mitnick was a good guy. Passphrases was his thing. Kevin Mitnick, yeah. He's the cyber god.
Yes, that's true, actually. Yes, he can have that one. Have you ever read anything from Kevin Mitnick?
I have not.
Oh my God, you have to. He's like the grandfather. He's gone now, the dead father of social engineering. I'll be shot for saying that.
We're going to take a very quick advertising break. Covered a lot of who the fallen deities of the cyber world are and the etymology of cyber. But so we'll be right back with more practical steps.
For 25 years, Ireland's digital story has been unfolding, and .ie has been right at the heart of it, every step of the way. .ie is passionate about enabling and empowering Ireland to leverage the internet for the good of its society and economy. As the trusted national registry, .ie protects Ireland's unique online identity and empowers people, communities and businesses to thrive online. So buy a .ie today and elevate your digital identity with a trusted, resilient and accessible .ie internet domain. .ie, celebrating 25 years in business. Here's to the journey ahead with you. For more information and to get your .ie domain today, please visit www.weare.ie.
Welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion on cybersecurity. So, question for the table then. What are some practical steps that someone without any knowledge of cybersecurity or any tech knowledge can do today to protect themselves? Also, what are good resources or places that they can look to educate themselves?
We had said like ChatGPT and Google for the very basics. If you're looking for something more formal, there's loads and loads of free online training. The big three have their own, but there's also even more basic stuff like SkillsNet do training. Is it ICT?
Yeah,
does it as well.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of different colleges that even have some free like taster courses and such. Just once you Google it, you're going to get at least 10 of them on the first page. I know that in the WESIS group that I'm involved in on the Irish side, we have a secret weapon in our group. So we have somebody who's involved in training and tech. I won't name her lest you get in trouble. But she always is at the root of where all of the best free training is. So we get it all posted in there. So if anyone's joining us, they can see it there. But yeah, Google is your friend. On the how to find out if you've got any problems bit, I would actually you answer the training one first, and then I'll come back to have a thought on that.
Well, not necessarily. I think you've covered the training one there, but I think for me, any small businesses we work with, we get them trying to align with a standard. Okay, but and often people think of the ISO ones. I'm not talking about those. They're big animals. Okay, but there's two in particular: NIST, NIST, and CIS, the CIS controls. And I think they're fabulous. Personally, I have a preference for the CIS ones because NIST is a little bit. It's maybe step involved, 2 or 3 down below, and it's a bit more interpretive. Okay, you've got to interpret what they're actually asking for you, whereas CIS is very boom.
It's a checklist. Like
it's a
do
checklist.
This and this and this, and then you're hitting standard one. Like it's great.
Boom, boom, boom. And you see, if when you read through it, actually, you'll see it's very much, it's literally download an Excel sheet. Like, I mean, it's that kind of a list. You're dead right. It does have a big emphasis on policies and procedures. Nothing technical. Further down, okay, when you get to the different implementations of it, it can have like, do you have DMARC switched on? What's your antivirus like? It'll ask you very specific questions like that. But I certainly would follow something like that, because then you're following a globally recognized international standard. And no matter what anyone says, if something happens and a breach comes in, the worst thing you can ever say to an auditor or a customer or anyone else is, we didn't do anything. I never thought about it. Whereas at least if something happens, because we actually, you'll agree with this, we say when, not if.
Yeah,
okay, when
everybody should be thinking that way.
Exactly. At least you can say, well, look, we align to this standard. We're looking at something best in class, world recognized standards. And we try to align very much to the standard. And most of the time people go, yeah, well, fair play to you. You did everything.
Trying.
You had the car locked. You had the alarm on, but they still got in.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that'd be something basic, I'd say, and if when it turns to actually one of the first steps you'll take is knowing your assets. That'd be the first thing, and looking at your risks and doing that risk mitigation. Go, right, what are my risks? Genuinely. And it's not the IT team. If you have an IT team, it's everyone in the business, because the finance person, the HR person, the cleaner coming in after hours, they'll have a different interpretation. Like, I'm a cleaner coming in at 7:00 when you've all left, and you know what, there was loads of documents left around the place, and I was actually able to, the doors unlocked, and they'll have a different perspective. But all of those risks in together, then you can properly build what are my real risks? What can I actually do something about? And what things then do I need to stop doing? Or what things do I just need to accept as a part of my business?
So it's about taking like a whole of business approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like a very kind of holistic sort of enterprise-wide approach to risk management.
Yeah.
Instead of, just the IT team centralizes all risk controls and cybersecurity controls.
Because that's the mistake a lot of businesses make, and I think it's that cyber word again, isn't it?
It is. That's where the implementation lies with that team as such. But the responsibility lies with absolutely everybody. Like, say, even the cleaner probably has some sort of a key card to get into the office, and should understand things like about people tailgating and safety of that key card even as an individual. And then but there's stuff on the desk even to report if they're seeing documentation on the desk that they shouldn't be able to see, so that that person who's left it there can be corrected. Now, I'm not up for absolutely criminalizing people who make mistakes. People should be able to make mistakes and be corrected on it. But if people can make mistakes and be corrected but not criminalized, then they're more likely to report mistakes, and you want them to report mistakes.
Exactly. Like who among us has not sent money to a deposed monarch that contacted them in email?
That might be just you.
You can't.
Oh no!
You can't see this, but all our hands are up.
That's a good segue, actually. How important is employee training, I guess, in sort of having this enterprise-wide risk approach to info security, or should more emphasis be on having those controls in place so that if someone does, screw up and respond to a deposed monarch, that there are safeguards in place, like sort of like the when versus if.
You can have all the controls in the world in place, but if somebody gives somebody their password, you're done for, because they've, and if they don't know not to do that. I mean, I often remember working years ago where everybody had a shared password to log on to registers, when I worked in retail, that kind of stuff. Like, you can't track down who did what, for starters. But also then, if the password is something like password with a 0 in it, then chances are someone can walk in off the street and guess that kind of thing. So if you don't teach them as to why it's important, it's not just about stealing the money from a register. It's about the data that is accessible for people then from there too. Your original question, though, I got sidetracked by that bit, was...
How important is employee training?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say so.
The training.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all. I think it's important, but I think everybody falls into the trap of doing the, Paul, you must watch this 1 hour video once a year.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same as it was last year. So you can go click, 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 and then answer the questions because, well, we know you remember it from last year and the year before and the year before. You don't care. There is lots more training out there that's much more, people can get into it, hands-on, practical. Doesn't really matter what role you're in. It doesn't, and it's not super technical. It's just about understanding. I was at the WASIS conference in Dallas, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I'm not even sure what month it is anymore. But there was a girl who ran a session, and the session was on identifying the rogue employee as such. Now, all of the employees had different kind of intentions. So one was making mistakes accidentally, one was driven by money, one was total fraud, or the intruder as we called. And they gave us sample emails, sample documents, and in the space of an hour and a half or so we worked through, and VPN logs and stuff like that. But it was really simple. I say VPN logs but it's simple. Like they had it tracked down to just what was important, so that we could go through it and see, put the pieces together and see the behavior that would indicate why somebody was X character in it. And it was, for me, hands down, singly,
yeah.
the most,
1 hand, 2 hands. It's fine.
the most sense I've ever seen in cybersecurity training. Now, that was with people who do cybersecurity, but it was aimed at people who don't, for us to re-implement it elsewhere. And absolutely, like, it made my year doing it, because I was like, that's exactly what we need to show people. Doesn't matter what role they're in. If they sit down and they go, oh, so I see when you're looking for a job after your review, and your review has, people are looking at that. What? But they're also trying to see what the behavior indicates. Like, they may not be concerned by it, but if you're also the kind of person who's getting short hours from work, or your VPN says you're in China, that might be other things that we need to look at as well. And it was just like, that's fun. If you can make it fun for people, like, I won't forget that training. I would have known the results anyway, but it has to be unforgettable.
We actually had a really fun training recently, actually, at our company, because we're also a pretty small company, but we had like this company-wide tabletop exercise. Yeah, which was great. There were different cards that came out, and then the first card was, this system has started to glitch, and then the next card is, oh, actually you don't have access to this system, and everyone had to divide into teams and then decide, what action does each role take.
Exactly.
And yeah, it kind of gets to like what you're both saying of it has to be an organization wide thing, because everyone can be a vulnerability in the organization. And yeah, I thought that was a good compliment to the annual training. But yeah, if our info security officer is listening, I never skip through the trainings. I am a good student. The 30-second completion time is it's pure
genius at work.
Pure, exactly. Okay, I think we could move on. I guess the last question that we want to talk about, just to kind of wrap things up, realistically, like, what is one thing that a small business could do, I guess, today, or that should have in place quickly to respond to a data breach or a cyber incident?
Put the plan in place. I think, was it Muhammad Ali or Tyson? One of them said everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face. Tyson, was it Tyson? Yeah. Well, he was one of the greats. But it's like the emergency room in a hospital. You might think I'll react in such and such a way, but until you've been involved in that situation, right, where the proverbial is hitting the fan, it's every single thing you've ever been taught, all those brilliant training courses where you click on ahead, I know all this, it all goes out your head. Okay, so you need to have the plan. And what we find is a lot of businesses we go into, they actually have the plan, but then they don't rehearse it. But we do that with fire drills. I've never been involved in a fire, but the fire drills are done.
Like, I do fire drills at home for exactly the same reason.
Yeah, we've probably never been involved in them. Probably, hopefully, touch wood, never will, crossing the fingers. But, I have seen breaches, and I've been involved in those. Yet so many companies, and we see it every day in the news pretty much, if you look in the papers, whatever. But a lot of businesses don't practice that response drill. And, what will we do? Actually genuinely sitting around a table like this and actually genuinely asking, right, what would we do? And actually, where is our data safe? And asking those real questions. But if you don't have a plan, I think everything else goes out the window. That's the first step.
Yeah, I can't even argue with that. That's spot on. Like, I wouldn't do anything different as the first step. Like, I was thinking about it going, no, that's good. Yeah. You win.
Thanks. Yeah. We got that in tape, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if this podcast was a competition, but okay, so I guess like Paul is our winner for the day.
I forgot you'd never met us before.
Yeah. Hey, well, now that Paul's been declared the winner, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Thank you to Jennifer and our winner Paul for joining me today. Thank you to everyone else for listening. And until our next episode, remember, stay connected and be nice in comment sections. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, million.
Thank you.